Well, viewers, those are the headlines in our top focus. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has discussed avenues for expanding U.S. participation in Liberia's critical mineral sector in a meeting with Liberian Foreign Minister Sara Beysolow Nyanti this week. Rubio and Nyanti have met in Washington to discuss deepening U.S.-Liberia bilateral relations and expanding U.S. commercial engagement in the country. Liberia's mineral endowment includes potential deposits of lithium, copper, iron ore and gold positioned within the broader West African geological formations. Now, geological surveys have concluded that the mineral wealth is concentrated in several key regions across Liberian territory. Northwestern counties show particular concentration of copper and gold deposit, while central regions contain lithium-bearing formations similar to those found in neighboring Guinea and Mali. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Desmond Majikujunmi, political and environmental activist joining us from Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. I wanted to understand from you at the outset, with this crucial meeting taking place, in what ways can now then Liberia leverage foreign investment from the United States of America in its mineral sector in order to promote sustainable economic growth?
Absolutely, and this is the key. They need to leverage very firmly, because what are we talking about? We're talking about lithium. We're talking about minerals that are so essential for the new revolution that's going on, what we can call the electronic AI revolution. You know, we've gone through several types of revolutions, industrial and so on, and now we're coming into the high-end, high-tech revolution. Lithium is key, cobalt is key, copper is key, and Liberia has massive amounts of this. And apparently, they're actually quite pure, so the processing is not as much. So yes, they need to leverage and ensure, and this is where the media have a strong role to play to ensure that the people understand that these minerals are so valuable and that they're coming out of their soil, but they must be extracted in such a way that they shall not cause harm to the environment. And this must be one of the conditions, that if it's going to be mined, then we need to have all the necessary resources to mine these minerals in a way that shall not be harmful to the environment. Because after all, when we're talking about environment, we're talking about our life support system. And it is already being threatened in many ways, particularly because of these modern technological revolutions that we had, starting with the Industrial Revolution, which is still permitting the pollution of millions and millions of tons of greenhouse trapping gases, which is causing problems. So the extraction of these other essential minerals must not cause harm to the environment in Liberia. They have the trump card, and they should use that trump card against the Trump people.
Indeed. I also wanted to understand from you, what challenges then might Liberia face in balancing, commercial interests along with environmental protection as well as its own sovereignty?
This is a very, very deep question, yes. And the reality is that in many countries around the world, in South America and also in Africa, the extraction of these minerals is being done in such a way that it has actually caused a lot of conflict. In fact, some of the organizations extracting the minerals are happier to do it under a condition of almost warlike situation, like you have in the Congo area. You have this type of situation. It makes it easier for them to extract at almost next to nothing, because they end up paying so little for the extraction. And this has to be avoided. We have to ensure that the drive for profit does not override the integrity and the safety of the people. And generally, this is what's happening on a much broader scale all over the world. Again, back to the Industrial Revolution that brought this massive amounts of pollution that is actually causing a threat to the very survival, or at least for the capacity of this earth to support life. So we have to change our ways. We can no longer allow profit to be put ahead of people and the planet. And it's the media, good organizations like yours, and a good country like India that has actually shown the world how certain things can be done. Talk about the agricultural revolution in India after the colonial days and all this. There's a lot to go on there. It's a topic for another day. So, countries like India and organizations like yours that can reach out into the consciousness of people, we need to drive this home. We need to get it across to people that whatever the profits, if it's going to be harmful to your life support system, then it's a no-go area, but particularly just for the individuals that make this decision. Because the law of the universe is governed by karma, retributive justice. So don't bring that kind of karma upon yourself just because you wanted to make some money. How long will you be able to enjoy this money? 50 years, 100 years? And then you now get the reactions from how you made the money. So we need to really sensitize people. It's a very, very delicate area, because this type of thing can cause terrible problems, or it can bring good to the nation if they handle it in the right way.
Absolutely. And it's not just concerns regarding the environment that come out. It's also whether the benefits would really trickle down to the local communities, whether it really translates into tangible benefits for the locals living over there. How can Liberia then ensure this?
Exactly. This is very, very key. And unfortunately, in quite a few countries, it is not trickling down at all. And as we referred to earlier, it's causing, far more problems. Luckily, Liberia has been through a very, very dark period, and she's come out into a lot more enlightenment and light. A democratic system, it's working better than in a lot of other nations. The people's voice is heard to a great degree, and one is hoping that, again, with enlightenment, the people will realize, whoa, this is a great opportunity for us to amass a lot of wealth into our country and to ensure that that wealth is utilized for the greater public good. Liberia actually might be able to set an example, because, as I said, she went through a very dark stage, and she seems to have come out of it fairly well, where the voice of the people is adhered to by the leadership. The democratic dispensation that is there now seems to be working quite well.
All right, sir. I'd like to thank you for sharing your perspective on this development. Also request you to stay put as we track further updates. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus away from Liberia towards South Africa. We're now learning that in South Africa, a growing anti-migrant campaign has reached public health facilities, where activists from Operation Dudula are now blocking foreign nationals from entering clinics and hospitals. At a community clinic near Johannesburg, members of the group were seen checking IDs and turning away anyone without South African documents, including legal migrants seeking medication. Authorities say that the pickets are illegal, but police have now struggled to stop them despite several arrests. The group argues that limited medical resources should be reserved for citizens, a stance which is widely condemned by human rights groups and government officials, who insist that healthcare is a constitutional right for everyone. Operation Dudula, once a protest movement, has now registered as a political party, vowing to expand its campaign to schools as tensions over immigration continue to grow. With us on the broadcast is Professor Kielboga Mafunye, African politics and elections expert, joining us from Pretoria. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. I wanted to, at the outset, understand from you what are the motivations of this particular group? What are their larger goals as well?
The main motivations, and thank you for having me, the main motivations of this group is largely the question of an unresolved migration issue regarding migrants coming into South Africa ever since 1994. You will remember that we used 1994 as a benchmark because before 1994, South Africa was under a racial regime called apartheid. And after apartheid, all the floodgates apparently were opened, whereby many people came into the country, many of them, I would say, illegally, and of course, taking an advantage of the fact that the country was now welcoming, black people into many areas, especially Africans of the country. So some criminal elements were able to come in over the years, and this issue remained unresolved because of the euphoria of freedom and independence in 1994, when many South Africans turned a blind eye about these people, the influx of many illegal, one should underline that, illegal immigrants. Those who came in legally were able to be registered and were able to follow the full protocols, the Home Affairs and the immigration policies and laws of the country. Unfortunately, there was another group of immigrants, mostly from many African countries, but not just only from Africa. We have, many of them from as far afield as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other parts of the world, not just in Africa. So this is a problem that South Africa has been facing, whereby the number has been increasing, and there has been tensions between the authorities, as your report is stating, that on the one hand, the authorities are saying the Constitution of South Africa does not allow people to stop people from accessing healthcare in terms of the universal healthcare policy and principles enshrined in South Africa's constitution. However, on the other hand, we should understand that the South African population, especially black Africans, has been very, very uneasy and to some extent angry in these past few years. We will remember from as far as field as 2008, when there used to be riots, people going on the rampage to South Africans going on the rampage to attack foreign migrants, especially those who are selling informal goods or goods informally in the black establishment and black residential areas like Soweto and other black townships. So what has happened was that now this tension has constantly or continually erupted. Occasionally, the authorities would step in, they would quell it, and then, of course, they would arrest whoever they arrest, because some of the protests were fueled by illegal, criminal elements, really, who were beating up people and were using brutal means of trying to enforce what they claimed was the law. And they could not even point as to where in the law does it say that people are not allowed to get health care. So it is the current tension that we have currently in the country, whereby you have these two contestations with the authorities insisting on the implementation of the constitutional and legal principles regarding migrants, to accept them, to accommodate them, and not to victimize them. But on the other hand, the ordinary citizens of South Africa, especially black Africans, I need to emphasize, because this is where this thing is happening. In the formerly white suburbs, middle-class suburbs, upper income areas, you don't see these kinds of things. You see them mostly in the predominantly black areas. This is where we have seen people saying that they do not want to see foreigners because they believe foreigners, number one, are coming to take their jobs. Number two, foreigners are bringing drugs. We have seen a lot of influx of drugs in the past decade or so, and blame is being put to the migrants. Is it fair? I would say it's a big question that we are also asking, because research has not been conclusive to say that it is the migrants who are bringing these drugs. But of course, South Africa does have a drug problem, and some of these drugs are coming from as far afield as Latin America, places like Brazil, Colombia, and you name it. And they are finding space, entering South African space. And of course, there are many South African, especially poor in the poorer areas, are being victimized and affected by drugs. We've got drug addiction, a serious drug problem. So in short, this migration issue is not an easy thing. The organization that you have just mentioned, Operation Dudula, which you say has just registered as a political party, actually shows the contentious nature of the immigration issue. Because there are some political parties who are saying You do not have to go to an extent of beating up people, going to hospitals, ejecting people and so on. Let the authorities do that if they find any criminality. But this group has been taking the law into its hands, if you like it, because they believe that the South African Home Affairs, immigration, as well as immigration infrastructure is collapsing, and they accuse South Africa or the South African authorities of allowing the borders of South Africa to be porous, in other words, to be easy to infiltrate. People are coming from all over, especially the neighboring countries of Southern Africa, like Zimbabwe, like Congo DRC, Namibia, you name it, Lesotho, and then Mozambique, and they are entering South Africa illegally. And then once they come in here, then they claim that they have the right to use the clinics and the healthcare facilities, which South Africans are saying actually they should not be coming here for that, because they are not political migrants, they are not political asylum seekers. Most of them are what they call economic migrants. And this is where the big tension is between South Africans, who are very patriotic, I must say, because they believe that their country is now getting assailed by foreign elements, who are part of whom are they blame of the crime, because they say that once a foreign migrant is involved in crime, or has been involved in a criminal activity, it is very difficult for the police to take any forensic fingerprint and stuff, evidence like that, to be able to know who it is. But if it's a South African, you can easily know that this person has got a national identity document, and you can trace those fingerprints. So therein lies the contention on this immigration issue. It is a highly emotive issue. It has not been resolved. And I'm sure even you yourselves in India, you are also having a similar thing, because I was once told about a situation where some Africans, illegal, I must say, have gone to India, and of course they were arrested by the immigration officials and deported. So the deportation is happening in South Africa, although sometimes because of the weak infrastructure in South Africa, even if these people are illegal and they've been arrested and they have been sent at a center to be deported, unfortunately they have found their way